Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. I'm here today to bring you my review for the 2018 HBO documentary André the Giant, a film or a documentary that is directed by Jason Hehir, and it has a whole host of famous people associated with and who knew this great legend of wrestling, André Roussimoff, also known as André the Giant. And there's so many people that talk on this documentary about their feelings for this great man, who was really a legend of wrestling before legends of wrestling were even a thing. He was the legend. He was the guy that brought wrestling into the living room before Hulk Hogan. You know, he was the one that passed the torch to Hulk Hogan, and Hulk Hogan grabbed it and ran with it. This was such a great documentary, and anybody who is a fan of wrestling certainly will want to check this documentary out. But I suspect many of those who don't really have much affection for wrestling would find this a very interesting documentary, because it's supremely made, with great insight to the life of André the Giant. And you even get family members talking on it, like his brothers and people like that. And for those that don't know, he grew up in France, and then he made his way over to America. He was a normal boy up until about the age of 13, I think, 14 I think it said, and then this medical condition that I'm not going to try and pronounce took over, and he grew very big very quickly. Now in modern, even at the time, it was fairly treatable, it said, but by modern standards his condition would be quite treatable these days. Maybe not reversed, but certainly halted and stopped, if you like, from getting worse. But it never was, and even it does explain in the documentary, even later in his life when he was offered treatment, he always refused it because he thought it would affect his wrestling persona or his chance in the business, whatever it might be. So he always refused any kind of medical help, really, in regards to his medical condition, that made him really big. To his detriment, because he died a young man. He died at the age of 46, I believe it was, which is the same age as me. No age at all, really. So this, it focuses on his life as a young man in France, and how he got into the wrestling business, and when he got into the wrestling business, how he was an absolute phenomenon, and booked as like a special event, if you like. And it explains like how wrestling worked in the 70s and 80s in the US, how it was, broken up into different sections of the country, and everyone had their own section, until Vince McMahon and the WWE or WWF or WWF at the time bought everybody out and went national with it all. And Andre used to basically travel the country to each section where this wrestling was, and he was the main attraction. He was the megastar at the time. He went over to Japan, he travelled the world, at an age where modern society, and it doesn't really work very well these days, but in those days, modern society, for a man of his size, but they just try and explain the simple logistics of him going to the bathroom. He spent his whole life, crapping in buckets backstages in events and stuff because toilets weren't big enough for him, and it just sounded awful, some of the things that he had to go through, just to get through life. And he did it for the majority of the time with a smile on his face, and it was a very fun guy. There's many people give great stories about him, about his alcohol escapades and what he could consume in a night. Literally cases of bottles of wine, and some of them talk about his huge flatulence that he would have that he thought was hilarious. And Hulk Hogan talked with real affection of his time with him in wrestling, and leading up to WrestleMania 3, that huge match at WrestleMania 3 between Hogan and André the Giant, and the fact that André could barely move at that point in his career, was very poorly and in a lot of pain, and managed to get through that match to pass the torch to Hogan, basically. You get Schwarzenegger making an appearance talking about him, as well as most of the cast, which I thought was really nice to see, most of the cast of the film The Princess Bride that he appeared in. You get the director, you get Billy Crystal, you get Robbie Wright Penn, Carrie Elwes, you get all these stars of the film talking really, really affectionately about him. I thought was really nice and really respectful, and I thought everybody, Vince McMahon talked about him, Jerry Lawler, there were so many recognisable faces in the entertainment and wrestling industry that had such affection for Andre and had these great stories about Andre that really fleshed out this character in a way, and you got to know him in a way that you never knew before. You just really saw this huge persona in a wrestling ring, and it was a real pleasure to watch. I really like a good documentary because I'm not a real big book reader, but when I do read books, I read biographies because I like to learn about somebody who I'm interested in, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger biography and Mick Foley, and I read biographies generally speaking if I read books because it has to be about someone that interests me. So that's why I like documentaries really. If it's about someone that interests me or a subject matter that interests me, generally speaking I'm there and I really like it. And it usually, if they give me information about the person I didn't know and it flashes out who they were, and they really do, and it's got a real emotional kick at the end. I really do mean that. You're choking up at the end, and it's a supremely made documentary. HBO do fantastic documentaries and they've done it again here. I'm giving this a 9 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and I strongly recommend that you seek out this documentary if you are a fan of wrestling, Andre the Giant, or just documentaries in general. I promise you'll enjoy this one. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. If you like this review, please click the like button, and if you're new to the channel, please consider clicking the subscribe button. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'll see you next time on Screen Stars.